Well, good morning, everybody, or should I say afternoon and midday on this beautiful Monday here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I cannot believe the weather here in Albuquerque. It has been incredibly hot, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to have all of the panelists just for a minute because we're getting some heavy reverb here. There we go. Awesome. So I want to welcome everybody to the next in our series of Trade Builds New Mexico with our partners, the LIBRE Initiative and New Mexico Tech. Thank you so much behind the scenes. And as always, we like to thank our very own Angelique Baca, who keeps us running and on time and live with you guys all on Facebook. So we've been doing this series of, we started last week, and it's gone very, very well. You know, we've had a whole lot of questions come through. People are asking, you know, not quite understanding how trade affects them. Does it even affect them? Oh, I'm just a general consumer. I don't need to know about that. Or I'm a business owner and I don't do anything with trade yet. So all these different things have been coming up, and we've been talking about ways to engage, ways for the community and the consumer to understand how trade affects them, number one, and number two, how they can get involved. So we're going to continue our series today with small businesses and how trade affects your small business. And we have with us today some guests and some panelists that are going to talk specifically to that topic. So we're very, very excited. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. Remember, if you cannot stay for the entire webinar or you come in late to the webinar, you can find a copy and replay this all you would like on our webpage at www.ahcnm.org. Click the COVID link up top, and when it drops down, click on the LIBRE Initiative webinars, and there you will find that you can replay those as often as you'd like, sit and listen, take notes, and by all means, continue to email and ask questions as we go through this series, and we will do our best to get them answered for you if we can in any way. If we can't, then we'll definitely bring it up on a topic webinar so that we can get an expert to answer. But so far, so good. We had some really good questions come in last week, and so we're hoping to create that same dialogue. So before we get started, I'd love to introduce you to the panel today, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. If you guys could give us about a minute on who you are, what you do, and how you work within the trade industry for our viewing audience. So I'm just going to start right to my left, Miss Angela.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Hoffman, and I'm part of the Trade Builds New Mexico team. You know, we're really excited to amplify the voices of these amazing stories about small businesses and entrepreneurs and manufacturers. I've spent about 20 years of my life on the policy side and the business side, looking at trade, working with trade agreements, and helping companies really grow through trade. So very excited to be here today, and you're going to hear a little bit more about our program from Ruben and the ways that we're working to tell those stories that are local success stories. Thanks, Shannon.
And we're looking forward to them. Thank you so much, Angela. We're going to have stories to the whole series, guys. So, you know, stay tuned. You're going to learn about new business owners, every single series that have something to offer in this industry. So we're excited to meet them all. Ruben, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. So my name is Ruben Guajardo. I am the Community Engagement Director for the LIBRE Initiative here in New Mexico. We're an organization that focuses primarily on the Hispanic community, but also on New Mexicans and New Mexico in general. And what we do is focus on trying to break barriers, both internal barriers and external barriers for the Hispanic community and for New Mexicans. And we're so excited to partner in this series and to be the Chamber's primary partner for the Trade Builds New Mexico series. One of the barriers that we see consistently, especially talking about New Mexico business owners, is that of tariffs and trade and the barriers that kind of come along with that. And so we've been engaged in this series to try to give everyone as best possible a better understanding of how trade works, how trade affects the consumer here in New Mexico, how trade affects New Mexico small business owners, large business owners, how it affects us at every level and every aspect of our lives, even when we don't realize or don't notice it. So I'm very excited to join again today and to hear from our expert panelists on this specific topic. And I do want to mention just quickly, as we've been talking about, we're collecting stories from all over New Mexico, and we're putting little video snippets and series together that we're actually promoting and pushing on social media and various other forms. And so if you're interested in that, I want to make sure that you contact Shannon over at the Chamber, or you contact me or us directly with the New Mexico Trade Trade Builds New Mexico team. We would love to get you and your business highlighted and show how you work within the arena of trade. This is just a really exciting series all the way around. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit at the end too, but we have officially launched our website for this effort. It is www.tradebuildsnewmexico.com. You can go there and you can find out everything that we're doing and how we're partnering with the Chamber to make sure that the word gets out and that your business can get connected and involved. So thanks again, Shannon, for everything that you guys are doing over at the Chamber. We're just really excited to be a part of this and to hear from our panelists today.
So Ruben, thank you so much for that. We're going to come back to you at the end, maybe to give us more details on that site. But guys, we're going to go ahead and post that site today in this webinar in the link on Facebook. And we'll also make sure that that's on their page, on the Chamber page as well, the link to the website, so that you can catch it from there. But we're going to get back to more info on that website here at the end of the webinar. So please stay with us. I'm going to move right next to Ruben, and we're going to hear from Mr. David Shams, who is, let's see, he's to my right. So David, it's all you. You're on mute. It's this whole Zoom etiquette thing.
I had it off for so long, I forgot to turn it back. Welcome. I'll give you a little background on myself. I've been about 35 years in the consumer brands industry, working for companies like Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, M&M Mars, and Rich Products. At this point in time, I'm actually the president of a company called Blue Sky Consulting, where I work under contract to be either the VP or director of sales for several companies, whether they're trying to take their products within these markets and spread them around the country, or take them abroad, and then also working with some countries abroad, bringing their products back into New Mexico. There's a lot of things that go along with that, and one of the things too, if you're in any kind of small business, you need to look specifically around sourcing of ingredients, and now one of the bigger things that's happening in consumer products is around sustainable packaging.
Well, we are excited to hear from you. It sounds like you might be joining us for more than one webinar. It sounds like your knowledge is definitely going to kind of filter through this entire month series. So don't be surprised if we call you back. And I just want to mention, I found it interesting that you said PepsiCo and M&Ms, because literally, I don't know if you guys can see it, I have Pepsi and M&Ms right here on my desk because we had a late night. We're working on a deadline today. And so I think that that's hilarious that you said that, because that's exactly what's in front of me. So I trust your brand excellence, because those are my brands too. So, and let's move over to Thomas. Please introduce yourself and tell us all about your business. We're excited to hear from you.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. I'm Thomas Dollahide. I'm the owner of a place called Peculiar Farms, and from that grew something called Europa Coffee, Tea, and Bakery. So we actually have a lot of European products that we sell on the floor. We also have those European products that we blend with what we have here on the farm, our beef, our eggs, vegetables, for all of our different plates as well. So, you know, we've got an interesting sort of amalgamation of things there going on. We've only been around for about 3 years, and just enjoying seeing the reaction from people all over the place. Well, I didn't even know this was made in Georgia, or this came from Bulgaria, and kind of seeing the awareness in the community grow.
So we're definitely excited, Thomas. We're going to break down your business here in just a little bit to really explain what it is and how import-export really affects your business. Yep. Have everybody mute again, because I think we've got a reverb again happening. But what I do want to say is that last week, because I think this will be really helpful to the viewing audience, and I'd like to keep this handy during all of these webinars. Last week, we had a great graphic that I believe Burley had had, and I'm hoping Angelique has it and she's listening in the background, just to have it on deck and ready, because I would like to touch on that before we close today. Or if it's ready, let me know, Angelique, because we would love to pull that up. The reason is, it is very difficult if you are not in this industry to understand the industry. I don't think we take enough time to appreciate the things that are directly in front of us and what it takes to make those, whether it is a can of soda or an M&M or whatever it may be. There's a full supply chain that goes into that. We're actually going to have a topic on that coming up. But so many businesses are affected by that. And they did a really, really great graphic that was actually a hamburger. And I believe next week we'll have the pencil one. We're going to remember to get that and have that ready, because we wanted to show the public and the consumer and the small business owner that may not go, is that for me? How important everything that we do is and how simple it is. So in a minute, as soon as that's ready, we want to pull it up and talk about it. Oh, she's going to pull it up right now. So Angela, if you don't mind, can I have you be the person that can walk us through this? Would that be okay with you?
Sure, you got Shannon. So this is just a great story that something we assume is just in our backyard is completely made in the U.S. in fact, integrated throughout the Western Hemisphere. And exciting news this month, the long negotiated, the bipartisan past effort to get the new NAFTA or the USMCA, the US, Canada, Mexico agreement, it went into effect last week. So it's been a great opportunity to not only stabilize trade with our Canadian and Mexican partners, but also to start to grow some of those opportunities. And I think small businesses, they're really going to be the ones who are able to lean in, because there's some new provisions around e-commerce and integrated trade that just makes it easier to do business. But this burger is really kind of fun because it talks about how the fruits and vegetables are coming from Michigan, they're coming from Mexico. We're looking at flour that's coming from Canada. We're looking at meat that's processed throughout the supply chain. It could start in Mexico, come to the US for processing, it could start in Canada and come back to the US. We're looking at cheese from Wisconsin, mushrooms from British Columbia. And of course, we need to update this one a little bit to include the wonderful chili peppers right from New Mexico. So the next version of this you're going to see is going to have that New Mexico twist to it. But this just highlights USMCA was an agreement that we entered into in 1992. So we have had decades of building those trade relations. This is something we got over the goal line this year. Huge bipartisan effort, actually the biggest vote ever for a trade agreement. And now we get to see what it's like to implement an agreement that takes into account some of the modern stuff like e-commerce. So very excited to see how our panelists will also be leaning into this expanded relationship with our trading partners in North America.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, for sharing a little bit about that. And like I said, we're going to bring that up as often as possible. It really does show everybody that, you know, whether it's ketchup or cheese or lettuce or the flour that goes into the bread or the processing of that meat, that every single time we eat a burger, we need to be more appreciative of where those products come from and how much, you know, small business plays a part in that chain. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, is small business. And so we're excited because I'm positive that everybody on this panel has a story, and we're gonna definitely hit that panel hard for those stories. But it is amazing how many businesses, New Mexico businesses, are either part of supply chains or they are actually the top business that's doing that trade, and they're using supply chains. So it's super important that we understand that and how it can change a business. Maybe something you had never thought about doing business with, importing or exporting. You know, recently we did a really great trade mission with the Department of Agriculture, the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. Jason New, who I think will be joining us in a future webinar. And it was all about the spirits industry of New Mexico, beer, wine, and spirits. And we actually had buyers come in from other countries going, wait a minute, we need those really amazing New Mexico beverages in our high-end liquor stores in our country, resorts, restaurants, different places that you wouldn't think that you would find New Mexico products. And so what that does is that opens the doors, literally opens the borders, and opens the possibility of growing your business. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want to start with David, because everybody's jumping around on my screen and I want to make sure we have everybody at fair time. But David, maybe if you could share with us the importance of this and how it does affect small business. And if you have any story you'd like to share about a business owner that you've worked with in the past, please do.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you start talking about parts of the supply chain, one of the biggest things you've got to deal with is being able to get supplies 365 days a year. One of the biggest things you start talking about produce, you can't just rely on produce, for example, that may have been grown in the United States. You're going to have to look contra-seasonally. Well, generally contra-seasonally, when you're looking at fruits and vegetables, you're looking at places like Chile, one of the biggest growers of fruits in the country. So you automatically have some things there that have to occur. There's several opportunities. I think some of the biggest issues most people have, unless they've got a person to manage their logistics, is really just the managing of the logistics and the contacts. And so oftentimes it requires an extra intermediary to help find those sources and help coordinate those sources. We've got a lot of land mass in New Mexico, but very challenging logistics. And I think that's one of the right things that you have to do up front as a small business, is try and find the right logistics partners, and then the right ones that can also help take your product either out of state to other states or to other countries, but also the sourcing of ingredients. I was just talking to somebody recently, and they're moving all their packaging to a product that is 100% sustainable and will break down somewhere between 16 and 26 weeks in a standard composting. Great message. Actually, this particular company happened to be from Singapore, and one of them that I'm working, that they want to bring their product back to this country. But what a great story. But the packaging is coming from England, and they're in Singapore. So there are no more global boundaries, if you will, anymore. And because of the need for resources and specialization around the world, it does require a lot of research. And if you can find a partner that can help in that, it will certainly save you time, money, and or energy, and certainly money in the long run.
So I think that's very interesting. Something you just said, we're talking about a product manufactured, produced in, say, Singapore or an Asian country. Then you have packaging that's created in a European country. So trade encompasses the entire world. It can be inside the United States, inside our borders, can be outside our borders, and hence the USMCA new agreement. And so maybe, Angela, you could just touch base for us on that just a little bit. I know we had a whole series about it last week, but just some key bullet points, maybe some things that are different from NAFTA to USMCA that I think small business owners that are watching would need to know.
I'll give some of the highlights. We have like 3 big things we're watching right now. So on the USMCA, by and large, the agreement for agriculture and most of our manufactured goods, we already had 0 tariffs between the markets. And so it was flowing very, very freely. Without the USMCA, withdrawal would have been, though, an imposition of between 45 and 70% tariffs in certain categories. So really high lift, keeping in mind Mexico and Canada are number 1 and number 2 trading partners. As David said, there's some interesting pieces that are related to packaging, and I'm getting to that in a minute, which has been impacted by other trade issues. But the other highlights for USMCA include increased access for dairy and poultry products into Canada, and then it's streamlined a process that if we do have disputes, we have a way to come together, solve those issues together, and then move on very productively in a commercial sense. So that's USMCA. Packaging is an interesting one right now, and as David mentioned, packaging coming from places like Europe, frankly, are kind of helpful because a lot of the packaged products are on the Chinese retaliation list right now. So we're in a bit of a trade war with our colleagues in China, and we're trying to find alternate supplies instead of adding additional taxes for all those other things in the supply chain that we need, like packaging, that can drive up costs. So I think that's very interesting. And as Ruben mentioned earlier, we are still looking through a number of tariff opportunities where some of these countries are retaliating either because we've imposed steel or aluminum, and they are putting tariffs on our export products, like those wonderful distilled products that are going to Europe are currently facing some pretty high tariffs in the middle of what's happening with our dispute on the European Airbus Boeing dispute. So airplanes have distillers in the mix. So it's really important that you understand that there's 3 big things happening out there. It's USMCA is going into effect. We're in the middle of a trade war with China. And we're looking at ways to reduce these tariffs versus retaliation in steel and aluminum that drive up your costs. But there's some tricks to the trade on how you can try to look for some alternative sourcing or other logistics to bring down those costs and avoid some of that risk.
So I'm positive that we're going to get into this again in the future in other webinars, but it sounds like there might be some countries that might be easier to do trade with than others. So we're probably going to kind of look into that. And then what does that look like? But I know with USMCA, we have, well, the trade industry has tried their very best to clean that up as much as possible and really hope to create better sight lines from border to border as far as what we need to do. And so again, you know, I would definitely be visiting these websites to get this information. It's vitally important as a small business owner that you take a look at what does your expansion look like now during COVID. You know, we've all been forced to change the way that we're doing business. Creativity, I think, is been off the charts. I think that necessity is the mother of all invention, and we have definitely been looking to work with businesses, and we have been working with businesses that have some creative ideas. And one of those is, how do you build your business through trade? And so I'd like to kind of shift the conversation down to Thomas for a little bit. He is definitely a small-owned business, but is using trade to definitely grow and increase his business. So Thomas, we're going to turn it over to you. Tell us everything about what you do. Tell us who you're working with, what countries you're working with, what products you sell. We really want to highlight you as our small business today.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we just, it's interesting because on the farm side, we've been doing beef for a long period of time. And that is something that we actually are part of a co-op where we're sending beef throughout the United States, but nothing outside of the United States. That was going on for a long period of time. And we decided, you know, we need to diversify. We need to have something here on the farm. And that's where we decided to start this restaurant, which just kind of exploded. And we have connections in Europe. We have a couple of houses in Bulgaria. I worked for a long time in archaeology in Israel. So we like Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and wanted to start bringing some of those things to people here. So it started with, as we put things on the menu, adding in certain products that we were getting from these other countries, whether it be jams or jellies or whatever it might be. That was really well received. We started selling the products. Then they wanted other items, you know, so we just continued to do that. So we actually, at this point in time, work with several importers in different countries throughout Europe to bring in different products that we not only use in food, but also just a ton of different things on the floor that people can purchase. So we work with Bulgaria, Georgia, Israel, Austria, Germany, and England primarily to bring products here into the store. We have a fairly decent sized little marketplace as well where we sell those products.
So tell us where you're located. And I know you have, it sounds like a little restaurant, or tell us a little bit about that. What do you serve?
Okay, yeah, so we actually do have, it's kind of interesting. It started as just a very small venue with the purpose of selling beef. And within months, it really just expanded beyond anything we could imagine. So at this point, we have a full-fledged restaurant doing entrees, etc. We have large chunks of outside seating where we do different, of course, not at this point in time, but in the future, weddings and those sorts of things. And of course, we have also a marketplace where we sell these European products. So from something like European coffees and gelato to full-fledged meals to catering of events, all of that happening down here on the farm. So we're about 25 miles south of Albuquerque in Los Lunas on a family farm that's been in the family for generations.
Wow. And so it's really interesting because, you know, here we are in Albuquerque, born and raised myself in New Mexico, and I had not heard of this. And so when we were reaching out last week to talk to a business owner about the importance of what they do internationally, you know, your name came up, your business came up, and I was like, wow, I've not been there. And, you know, I know the state pretty well. So I'm excited to visit you, obviously, when the time is right. But I would like to talk to you just a minute about, you know, about the pandemic and about COVID, and how has that affected your business first and foremost? And what are some of the things that you had to adjust to and change in hopes of sharing some of your best practices with small business owners that are watching?
Yeah, it's been interesting when it comes to the beef side of things. It's amazing because we do actually sell USDA certified for resale beef here on the floor, as well as selling it to different stores like La Manzanita, Whole Foods, etc. The processing has been our challenge. So everybody wants beef. It's amazing. We've had our market probably a 50% increase in demand. The problem is processing. So on that side of things, it's been really challenging to deal with that, and realizing just as a whole, New Mexico as a state needs to improve our ability to process beef if we ever really plan on increasing that market. So that's been something we've been doing, working with a local processor in Vegas that's trying to get online to improve that. When it comes to the importing side of things, I mean, that definitely put a kink in many of the COVID-19 crisis has put a kink in many of our products because it's hard to get things right from these different countries. It really has disrupted our supply chains. Many of the products were out just because they couldn't get the raw materials they needed to produce those. So that was a bit of a challenge. So trying to find places where the restrictions were less and the products were available. So England was not that much of an option. Bulgaria was hit very slightly compared to other countries. So we were able to ship to a lot of Bulgarian products and bring in large shipments from there and really try to promote Bulgaria. And Georgia was in a similar state, very few infections in Georgia, same thing. So that's been very helpful. As it goes to restaurant seating, we have a lot of outside space, which has helped for a lot of the crisis when we have been able to, like even now we're closed inside, but we still have, I'm looking out on the patio, many people seated out there on the patio is accepted now with the governor's new order. We've been able to kind of make things work that way, doing some juggling by trying to promote family meals, trying to put more of a presence. We're using our POS Square to try to really bring this together using an app which allows people to order online and get those things printed off ahead of time. So just shifting what we were doing to work with people that are afraid to come out, making things work better outside so we have more space for people that are willing to come out, but obviously want to still follow the governor's orders. So it's been some working, but honestly, believe it or not, through the crisis, besides the events, which have hurt, we've been able to keep the restaurant at almost the same sort of income that we were generating before the crisis, surprisingly.
Yeah, I was going to say, so that is really exciting. And I got very excited just now hearing that because, here at the Albuquerque Toronto Chamber, we have a membership a little over 1,000 that kind of fluctuates. And, for the most part, I would say that a large majority of businesses are exactly what Thomas just said. They're doing whatever they can. They're being creative and they're coming up with new processes to make things work. And then of course there's some businesses that are not even open yet. And so we don't want to get into that right now, but we understand. So when I hear stories of businesses that have said, hey, we have to make it through. We have to adjust. We have to do that. It's just really exciting because that's what we do here. And so that on a separate note, we're really excited about that. But what I love is that you've adjusted. And one thing to keep in mind, everybody, is that COVID is a worldwide pandemic. It doesn't just affect one area. And I love how Thomas said, we kind of looked at, if you will, we kind of looked at the map and some of these countries were not as heavily affected. So they were able to continue their supply chain and able to continue to get the products in. And now he's talking about it's great weather outside. He's got people on the patio, they're eating lunch. And so I think if anything, whether it's the trade industry or whatever industry you're in, it's adjusting and it's, the I can do attitude to the best of your ability within, of course, the guidelines. And so I just want to say kudos to Thomas and his team for keeping his employees and keeping his family business open. I know what it's like to have a legacy in a family business, and so that's super important to us here at the Chamber, so congratulations. So I think, David, I'd like to come back to you for just a minute to talk about, now I know your expertise is in supply chain, and but I would like to say, with COVID, what have you noticed or discovered in working with your clients in regards to how COVID has affected, how small businesses are receiving products and services?
And one of the larger companies I work with is actually out of Tifton, Georgia. And obviously, of course, when you start talking about production teams, you've got to separate your production teams into separate days. You almost have to separate your workforce. So you have to dial it in differently, have them work on opposite days. Otherwise, at least if one team goes down, you've got another team that can come in. And that's some of where some of these beef and poultry plants have run into problems, kind of to Thomas's comments. Their segregation of their work teams has not been complete enough. That particular company was able to work through things fine. There were some delays on raw materials, but generally speaking, their volume was up in a huge manner. They had one little scare. They had to test everybody. They were able to go back to it, no issues, but their volume was up 25 to 40% during the COVID crisis, just trying to supply food products. So the biggest challenge, of course, their lead times increased. In some cases, it moved from, say, a 2-week lead time up to a 3-week lead time, maybe a little bit more. But within that, compared to a lot of other companies that basically got wiped out, by quickly reacting and putting some standards in place, separating front office from back office operations, not locking doors, making sure that those things so you didn't have your workforce with your administrative staff combining, was one of the biggest things that they did, and they moved on very, very quickly. And it really helped, I think, keep their lines of supply to their end use customers and the consumer really where it needed to be with very little interruption.
Having to unmute here. Well, that's good. I mean, you know, it sounds like businesses are learning to adjust and figuring it out. I think we are a community that has figured things out very quickly. And I think that somebody could write a book about best practices after this 4-month period. And so we definitely appreciate all of that information to share, because that's what we're about. We're about a community that shares with best practices, whatever industry you may be in. It might work for you, never know, including trade. So I want to get back to you definitely to the topic. So Ruben, I just want to jump over to you for a minute. You work with so many businesses in the community. I understand you know, the main focus of the LIBRE initiative, but tell us a little bit, do you have the stories of a business or a couple of businesses that you have seen success through trade?
Yeah, well, I see businesses all over the place adjusting and figuring out, especially in this season. I've seen them actually use different options and different means. There's a couple restaurant owners here in town that had some restaurants in the mall, and they had to shut down completely for a little while, and they were in the middle of opening another location outside of the mall. And they noticed, just like Thomas was talking about, that certain places got hit harder, and so they had to adjust where they were getting certain things from, certain products from, and so they were trying to figure out, well, you know, it's a Mexican restaurant I'm referring to now specifically, but they were talking about, you know, where there are certain cuts of beef come from and how are we getting them, and there's an issue here because now the orders have gone up, and so this company out in northern New Mexico is having a little trouble, you know, getting the product out as quickly as they need to, and so they had to find a couple other distributors who would get them the products that they need. And so it's amazing how it's all enveloped, even in the middle of this situation. Trade, it still has to go on, and people still have to move forward with the business that they conduct day in and day out. And so, you know, the trade conversation shouldn't stop, and because trade doesn't stop even in the middle of what we're going through and what we're seeing as a reality in this season of time. So for various business owners, I want to encourage you, just like Shannon was saying, it's definitely possible to continue in this time. You've just got to get out there and to hack it out and to figure it out. There are lots of people on the other side of the supply chain, not just the local businesses receiving, who are you know, doing their best to adjust for their customers as well. And so if you make the right connections in the right places, you know, talk to people like me, talk to people over the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, talk to the experts in your specific industry, and they can get you connected with the people that you need to get connected with so that you can hopefully thrive in the middle of this season and not see so much of a downturn like unfortunately a lot of businesses are.
You know, well, first, you're right. Everything Ruben said is correct. I mean, really rely on your resources out there, your small business resources. There is so many out there. And if you're not sure of what you need, give us a call, 505-842-9003. We are closed to the public, but we're checking emails, emails and voicemails all day long, and we'll get back with you, because whatever we don't do here, we'll connect you. And that might be to the LIBRE initiative, or it might be to, funding. It might be to different stuff. So do not hesitate to reach out, whether you are a member or not. We are here to support the community during this time. But I do want to say, I know who Ruben's talking about in the mall. And I have to tell you, kudos to those businesses that opened new locations during COVID. That has been amazing. We actually are doing, funny story that you would bring that up, Ruben, on Friday on New Mexico Living. We have a whole, it was this last Friday. We had a whole segment that was dedicated to businesses that opened during COVID. And it was quite interesting to see, the way that the businesses have had to come together to figure that out. Chances are they were opening prior to COVID. They had already done their groundbreaking and all of that fun stuff, but they followed through, and we were excited to be part of that. And we're excited that they were members. So
I think it's a testament to their ingenuity. It is a testament to their toughness in the middle of this. And, circling back to, what the topic is for today, it's a testament to their ability to be able to navigate, or to have navigated this trade situation, because all of those connections are still there, and they're still working through them. And we've got a lot of businesses in New Mexico to be proud of.
We absolutely do. And I think it's amazing. I'm thinking in the back of my head, the businesses that we highlighted last week, and, they're all restaurants. And so obviously their food supply chain, at some point during the last 4 months was affected, and how they've adjusted, whether it's through changing their menus or deleting or adding new items, or if your location was completely closed because of a guideline and you opened up on another side of town, due to a different guideline, and how you adjusted to that. So that's been a really exciting thing. And again, it's trade. It's trade that has allowed these businesses to continue to flourish and grow during this time. So I think that's important. So Angela, I know I'm going to come to you with the same question, but tell us about any businesses, or, if you have a couple that you might know that have really used trade to help to grow and scale their business.
Yeah, I think this has been a really interesting time, especially for small businesses who have been able to be nimble. So for example, I've got a woman-owned business, and she does baby apparel. And while she's trying to navigate the complexities of the tariffs, she shifted to face masks and is doing a fantastic job, and also, upgraded her products on the websites. We're seeing the distillers who are now providing hand sanitizer to keep themselves in business, and again, adding new sort of virtual tastings. We are seeing a process, though, that people might not know about, is there is a process to get your products off the list if you are related to COVID. So you have gloves, or you have chemicals that go into a product, or wipes, loudspeakers that might be used in ambulances or hospitals, tents, other products that are related to this, generators, air conditioners, you name it. There is an opportunity to get the products off the list, which brings down your costs, keeps your availability, keeps your supply chain going. A lot of people don't know that. So, if they want to get more information about the exemption process, particularly through COVID, now is the time to be making the ask, particularly as a small business. The whole goal here is to keep these businesses going. So telling that story and actually making the request for exemption is something they can do right now. And then last, I would say we are seeing many of the companies from a small business standpoint continue to grow because they have such unique products, and they're using the new tools of trade that include e-commerce to be able to expand their supply chain. And, I loved what Thomas was saying, how you've created a marketplace, both an in-person and a virtual, to create a very specific niche for what your customers want. So I am a big fan of small businesses accessing these trade agreements. I should have mentioned, in the USMCA, it has a small business chapter. And what that means by chapter is there are provisions specifically there, which means there are programs and support groups to help small businesses do more under these trade agreements. So this is a prime time for it, Shannon.
Keep forgetting about the mute button. We get halfway in the sentence. So, so I think that, something that Angela said, well, first of all, everything she said was very, very important. I love the creativity and the uniqueness of what the small businesses have been doing. Whether, like you said, whether you're a distillery and you're like, well, here, I'm going to do hand sanitizer, because I got to keep the supply, I got to keep my clients, I got to keep continuing to do business during this time, or baby products to masks and those amazing things. So first of all, kudos to the creativity. Again, somebody could write a book on how amazingly creative people have been. But I also think that it's important, as a small business owner, that you understand there is opportunities out there that you may not be taking advantage of and you may not know of. And one of that is understanding the USMCA, amongst many other agreements that allow you to trade in and out of the borders. And I think that that's so important that you do that. Like we said, a baby products, who would think of that? And then all of a sudden it's like, as she's starting to navigate to grow her business internationally, she did a little pivot. But what product do you have out there? What service do you have out there that could be done internationally, or that you could get into a supply chain to supply somebody to do their product or service? Like a car, we talked about automobiles last week. How many pieces and parts go into cars, and where do you fit into that supply chain? And so with that being said, I want to just take a few minutes to talk about the website, Ruben, that you brought up at the beginning of the hour. Really, I feel like it's going to be a wealth of information to share about how trade builds New Mexico. So if you could, Ruben, share with us a little bit more in depth about the website.
Yeah, so the website is now officially launched, and obviously it's just one piece of this large Trade Builds New Mexico effort that we've been putting together in the last few months, and which is kind of coming to a culmination in the month of July. We've still got a lot of webinars to go, a lot of information coming, a lot of incredible guests. We don't want you to miss any of that. But the website specifically is going to be something awesome. It's really going to be the hub where the information that we discuss and that we talk about and that we come to, where all of that lives. And so we're going to be doing a lot of stuff having to do with the partners that we're going through. So I'll give you a bit of information as to the pieces of what's going on the website. So you'll be able to find there our mission, our vision, what this whole Trade Builds New Mexico effort is about. You'll also find some information as to how you can partner with us. Remember, we've mentioned on multiple occasions that we're looking for local businesses here in New Mexico to partner with us. It's completely free and open source. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be doing some video series with these businesses and getting them some promotion. We really want to discuss and show the public how trade affects New Mexico businesses, New Mexico consumers. You're going to get a lot of information on the website as to the numbers, what trade looks like, who our biggest trading partners and trading countries are. It's all going to kind of live on a hub there. And so you can go to that website even as of now, www.tradebuildsnewmexico.com. That's www.tradebuildsnewmexico.com. You'll get to see obviously our anchor partners, the LIBRE Initiative, Americans for Prosperity, the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to be adding also the different partners that we come into partnership with over the next month. And we're going to be highlighting those videos as we put them together. So lots of exciting stuff there and lots of exciting stuff to come.
So we cannot say it enough. We're going to continue to remind you every single day, every webinar. If you are a small business with a story, we need to hear from you. You are an inspiration, and we need to share that so that other businesses can say, wow, I want to do that, or, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or, oh, I didn't know they were doing trade business. And so it's important that we get you guys, capture that information on a quick video. And again, reach out to us here at the Hispano Chamber, www.ahcnm.org. It's our information button. You can get me at shannon@ahcnm.org, and I will connect you to Ruben. Ruben, if you could just quickly share your information so it's in this video when they replay it.
Yeah, our main website is belibre.org. That's BRE.org, or you can contact me directly at rguajardo, RGUAJARDO @blibre.org, or get a hold of the chamber and they can get you in contact with me directly as well.
Absolutely. We want to hear from you. We're going to track you guys down. You watch. We know you're in the database and we know you're out there, so we're going to find you. So as we start to wrap things up for the day, I really want to kind of go back to David a little bit. And I just want to say, David, we talked about a lot today with small business and, the importance of how small business grows, trade grows New Mexico in through small business. So could we please definitely share with us your thoughts of how a small business owner or a business owner what is the process to get started? Where do we need to go? What can they do?
Well, if you're talking about going abroad, I think there's a few different options. I've found over time that there's some interesting routes to other markets that are a little friendlier than others, as you kind of pointed out earlier, or Angela did. One that we found that there's several distributors that work out of Australia, for example, as importer-exporters, and then they can also handle inroads into the entire Asian continent. And that's been extremely helpful. The other one, actually, because there's also, you don't have some of the other language barriers, you don't have some of the other issues, is South Africa. South Africa, believe it or not, is a very easy country to do business with. Now, doing business back and forth with Mexico is okay if you've got products in it. If you're a food manufacturer doing, say, chocolates or whatever it is, they've got some interesting tariffs on sugar, which they have because they're trying to protect their own scenario. Canada, if you're doing more commodity-based business, it's pretty smooth. If you're doing packaging products, then you've obviously got to deal with a separate labeling issue around having French labeling on your product, which drives up expenses, and distribution in Canada can be kind of a challenge depending on who your partner is, because you're thinking about having Canada actually in scope and size, obviously is as big as the US plus, but it's only got the population of California. So you enter some very interesting dynamics when you start talking about the Canadian market. So those two joint partners, and that may be something for another discussion that you bring up. It depends on, again, whether your product is a finished product or whether it's a raw ingredient product that can go across the border, for example, into Canada because they need it, because they've got other processors up there that need that ingredient as part of their production. Hope that answered at least a little bit, but is there anything else you were looking for specifically?
No, you know what? I think that's great. That was a really great quick insight to certain countries that, I would never thought of. South Africa, you're, again, the way that we think and the way that this kind of conversation really helps a business owner go, well, wait a minute, do I have something that I need from there or that I could get there or send to there? So I think that was really great. And I especially love the Canadian comment because I'd never looked at Canada that way before. So
you've got one of the things that's relatively easy, and I'll leave on this note. If you've got a product that, depending on what it is, and you can get it into Canada or into Mexico, both have Amazon Canada and Amazon Mexico. There are companies in those two areas that you can work with. They'll do all the fulfillment. They'll set everything up with Amazon in both of those countries. And obviously things can build out of there. Both of those countries also have, shall we say, Walmart divisions, rather robust. So you've got some opportunities for some relatively big customers down there. HEB, who's out of Texas, has a particularly strong strength down in Mexico. Some other really good partners from a quality perspective that allow you to get internationally without maybe having to jump through as many hoops and really understand their distribution logistics nightmares.
Well, that actually reminds me, and I want to jump over to Angela for this one, but, when you talk about HEB, we talk about, a recent, when I say recent, within the last year, trade mission, again, that we did with the Department of Agriculture, specialty New Mexico foods. And, New Mexico has some really great stuff. It's not just chili, but we have an entire pecan industry. And Angela, maybe you could just touch base with us on that. And I don't think that a lot of people understand pecans and trade. And so if you could just kind of give us a minute on pulling that all together, because that is a very vibrant industry for us here in New Mexico.
Sure. And I think it's a really interesting success story in New Mexico as well, because it's not just growing the pecans, but it's also the processing. and taking sort of that higher value content, so their packaging and processing as well, and growing those businesses across the state. These are multi-generational businesses as well for pecans, so very proud that, again, generations have been involved in growing, and China's the #1 export for most of those pecans. So recognizing that you have a custom trade partner, but you've just top 5 trading partners, just kind of the aha moments: Mexico, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. And that's everything from pecans to airplane parts. So there is such a wealth of opportunity for the supply chain. As Ruben mentioned earlier, I don't know, Shannon, if you have a second, just even for a minute, to pull up the new website. We're super excited to show it. It literally just went live moments before. It's www.tradebuildsnewmexico.com. And as Ruben mentioned, these are the stories we want to tell. We want to tell about the family history that grows in these businesses across the board. And you'll see, so you're going to have all sorts of action here. You can take action. You can scroll it down a bit, Shannon. Our mission, again, this is a free effort. We're here to really be a big tent and tell these stories. So where you see this video, we're going to replace it with those amazing stories here in New Mexico. And we'll help you pull those together, even if it's a 1-minute selfie. So we're building partnerships, and we're really trying to tell our story at a time when trade is a little bit unknown, as you've said. And then if you go down a little bit, Shannon, you're going to see, these are big numbers. If you're looking at the billions of dollars that come out of New Mexico around the world, the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are impacted, Mexico is our largest trading market. Manufacturing and agriculture exports, those are real dollars. That's real impact on our communities. So whether you're a pecan grower, if you're in dairy, if you're importing a product that's sold in a unique restaurant, this is really a growth driver, particularly during a very uncertain economic time. So the last one will be, how do you get involved? There's some sign-up links at the bottom. And we're looking for other associations and other businesses also to join us as partners. So thanks, Jen.
So we will make sure that we show that at the end of all of our webinars. That is, it's a great website. I know it's going to continue to build. And I have to especially say, I drew quick attention to the number of businesses doing trade in New Mexico, over 1,300. That is very exciting because sometimes, you don't always know people, business owners that are doing trade. So that was a real eye opener. I appreciate that. So we're going to post that website link in this Facebook Live right at the top of the feed where everybody's watching or tuning in. We'd love for you guys to click on that link. We will also have it on our website, and we will continue to share that over the course of the month and thereafter, because it's going to be an important part of what we do, not just in growing New Mexico, but in recovering from COVID. So with that being said, Thomas, are you going to be sending in your video to Ruben so we can make sure that you get up on that site?
Yeah, I definitely should. Yes, I'll see what I can do.
Well, we'd love to have that. And we'd love to close up with a few final words. Tell us again, one more time, the name of your business and anything you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, sure. It's Europa Coffee, Tea, and Bakery down in Los Lunas. And of course, it's housed here at Peculiar Farms. And we're excited. We've talked about all the different Georgian and Bulgarian and Israeli products. Hopefully, in just about a month, we're going to launch a bunch of wines from those countries. And so we've got a young man that's kind of an expert in that area that's going to do some classes and give some tastings. And so pairing that with New Mexican food should be an interesting combo.
It's a fusion. Fusion.
Yes.
European, New Mexican. We're excited. So guys, we're just about out of time. And so I want to say, thank you so much, first and foremost, to the small businesses out there that are driving through and holding tight during COVID. And we understand that, for everybody right now, you may not be open. It may not be the best conversation at the moment, but we want you to be thinking about it when it is the right time for you, when you're ready to get more information. David mentioned some of that. We're going to definitely be building a database for that so that we can share with you guys that information. I'm positive that the website we just showed you is going to have that information as well upcoming. It's important that you make the inquiry. Start the process, because you do not know if it's for you or not until you get with the experts to find out. And you never know, they might be able to connect you. Our statement here at the chamber that we always close with is, we believe that everybody is just one connection away from realizing their dreams. business. And you never know, it could be that one connection that could take you to a whole nother level. And it could be international. It could be with another country and you had not thought about it. So as a small business owner, we want you guys to be thinking that, you know, globally, to help build and sustain your business for your family, your employees, your future. So really appreciate that. So in closing, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors as always, the LIBRE initiative. Thank you to Ruben and team so much. We have also partnered with Burley and his team, Americans for Prosperity, to share the word on trade. And we're going to continue to do that all month. So we appreciate them. Angela, thank you so much. And of course, our partners, our friends who have been with us the last 4 months, New Mexico Tech, the little L's behind the scenes that help us every way that they can. We appreciate what they do for us so much. We will have another trade webinar on Wednesday. Manufacturing, thank you. I'm not going to say, but thank you, Angelique, up in the corner. She knows what I'm going to say before I'm going to say it. So we're going to talk about manufacturing and again, how trade affects that. So we're excited to have a whole new panel back for that discussion. And I want to say thank you to our guests today, David and Thomas. Thank you so much. When I am in Bosque Farms, I promise I will be down there, Thomas. I had not heard of it until last week. And so that's the beauty of webinars and connections like this, because we want to help to share and spread the word of your small business and hopefully put some people in your seats on your patio upcoming. So you guys have a fantastic Monday. Thank you again to everybody. And we will see you guys Wednesday when we talk about manufacturing and trade. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.